Welcome, everyone. Good evening. What's going on? Welcome to Max Monday this evening. It's going to be a very special edition of Max Monday tonight. Let's do this. As you are coming in, say what's up tonight. So good to see you all coming in strong. That means there are some people who are ready for it tonight. And so continue to come on in. Say hello as you're coming in. Today's going to be tonight. It's going to be a very special edition of Max Monday. So come on in, say what's up. Let me know how your day has been because we have some things to navigate together tonight. I see Wendell already in the building. I see Javon already in the building. Once I got that name, I never forgot it. Nat already in the building, Leah in the building. Keep coming in, keep saying what's up. We got Facebook going live. We have YouTube going live. We have Instagram going live. Listen, as you're coming in, what up, my guy? Listen, as you're coming in, make sure that you listen. Make sure you tell some people about tonight. We are going to get practical. You're going to have to think tonight. It's going to be good, y'all. We're going to work through some things together. Go ahead and invite somebody in because we're going to get practical understanding and application tonight. Max Monday, Think Tank Edition. Okay? We're going to think tonight. We're going to grow tonight. And so, again, continue to come in. Continue to come in. Hello, Michelle. I see Michelle's name popping in. Sonia, welcome in. Sonia, y'all show Sonia some love. She did an incredible teaching while I was away about 2 or 3 weeks ago, right here on Max Monday. So I thank God for her. And I'm glad to see her name come through the chat tonight as well. So y'all show her some love in the chat. Y'all, let's do this. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes. And so I want to give plenty of time for us to invite other people. I'm telling you, Facebook, listen, go ahead and share this link. YouTube, text the link, share it to at least minimum 5 people. Minimum. I'm telling you all, minimum. Think Tank edition of Max Monday. All right. We're going to deal with some very specific things tonight. And I'm super thankful for what's going to happen and transpire. All right. We got literally about 60 seconds before we get this thing going. And since you all are here early, I want to give you a quick preview of what's about to go down, what's about to go up tonight. How about I put it that way? Is that there are some specific things that I believe that God desires from us in this day and in this hour, right? There are some very specific things as it pertains to purpose, as it pertains to change, as it pertains to how we game plan from this day going forward. And so I'm telling you, you want to be a part of this. You want your friends, you want your family members to also be a part of this. Once you have invited, let me know. I'm right here. It is almost that time. I'm going to pray with us and then get us going tonight. All right, let's do this. God, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for this opportunity to gather in this way. We thank you for your presence. We thank you for your word. God, thank you for your consistency. You are truly faithful. Even when we weren't looking, you blocked things. The things that we didn't see, you blocked. The way you protect us, the way you provide for us, the way that you correct us, the way you are the ultimate expression of love because you are love. We are thankful for tonight. I pray, God, tonight there's understanding, that there's application, that we hear and do, that we pray and watch, then act. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Listen, if you're ready for tonight, go ahead and put the words think tank in the chat. If you are ready for tonight, go ahead, put the words think tank in the chat. Drop it in, drop it in the chat. The words think tank. All right. The words think tank. Go ahead and put those words in the chat. Think tank. Listen, we have been talking about some specific things in the text as it pertains to Nehemiah and what he navigated. And so we talked about, we've dealt with the burden that God placed on his heart regarding his purpose and his assignment. I want you all to know right here at the top of tonight, as we go walk through this content together, that not only does God want you to know your purpose, he also desires, listen, that we know it and that we know what to do with it. Are you ready for this? That we know what it is and that we know what to do with it. Hear me. That we know how to guard it, that we know how to develop in it, that we have the right connections and relationships that cultivate what he's already placed on the inside of us already. And so, wherever you are right now, wherever you are mentally, wherever you are regarding what you may have thought through or worked through over the weekend, today, as it pertains to work, etc., I want you to know that this is a space and this is a zone that's designed to further cultivate what is on the inside of you. All right. So, again, this is the Think Tank edition. All right. Listen, I need for us to document and to write down, all right, these 4 words. We're going to expound on something that's been introduced to some of us, and it will be reintroduced tonight. All right. Write down these 4 words. The very first word that I want you to write down is the word define. Okay. Define. Write that word down. Define. Define. Secondly, write the word develop. All right. First is define. Secondly is develop. Thirdly is this. Write down the word defend. Okay. We have, yes, define, develop, defend, discern is the last one. Okay. Discern. So we have define, develop, defend, discern. There are some specific things that we want to talk through as we walk through this tonight. And yes, thank you all for sharing. Listen to this right here. And so I want to pose a number of questions tonight and provide some solutions tonight, but I need you to think. If you don't have something already to write down, make sure you have something to take notes with, to type with, etc. Because there's some things that I need for you to answer, and for the things that you are comfortable with, you can place in the chat. So we must work through this together on your private notebook, your private device, whatever. Put your answers there. What you're comfortable with sharing, put in the chat. Okay? And so let's walk through this together. That's it. Write the words define, develop, defend, and discern. When it comes to your purpose, when it comes to what God has called you to do, we have to have clarity on these 4 areas. All right? Let's get into it tonight. So, again, we've been talking through and teaching through the first few chapters of Nehemiah. Okay. Now, when I say the word define, what I'm dealing with is that Nehemiah received direct and defined instructions regarding the burden placed in his heart. The thing that God desired from him was given to him with clarity. Now, he did not know everything that would come with that assignment, but he had clarity. How many of you understand this part right here? that while you do want to know and need to know your purpose and assignment, if God showed you the entirety of what came with that purpose, it would scare you. If God gave you the entirety of your purpose in one glance, many of us would never take the first steps to do it because we will also see what came with it. Are you all with me so far? This is very, very key. So, what happens is many times purpose is revealed over time. While we get some inclination as to what it is and what it, how we deal with it, we must first understand this part that we may not get the entirety of what it looks like at one setting. Okay, are y'all with me? If you're with me, say yes. If you're with me so far, put yes in the chat. Yep. Instagram live as well. Yes. If you hear me so far, put yes in the chat. All right. I want to make sure that we get the fullness of what we're going to walk through tonight. All right. If you with me, put the word yes. Yes. Purpose is revealed, I'm saying, over time. Okay. Because what happens is this is that whenever we get a glimpse of what purpose looks like and begin to execute, begin to walk in it, we see different layers of it revealed. What's up, Portia? Right? All right. So the very first one was define, right? Right? Under the word define, what's up, D? Under the word define, I want you to put the word clarity. Clarity. Before we even get into purpose and what God places in our spirit, let's get into two critical things. All right. Here's the first one. Write this down. Write down the question and then your response. Again, Max Monday Think Tank Edition. All right. Before we get into purpose, we must address two key things. Here's the first one. How do I view God? Write this down. How do I view God? Okay, write it down. Write it down, and then begin to write down your answer to that. Okay, we're gonna work through some things tonight. Very interactive, very engaging. You've asking your own questions. Okay, how do I view God? I want you to begin to write down a few words there. Okay, the second part of that question is this: how do I view myself? Let's get into this, y'all. How do I view God? How do I view myself? Take a few moments and begin to just write down a few words to that question. How would you answer that? How do you view God and how do you view yourself? Right? While you are doing that, let me just mention this. Nehemiah saw, respected, had an awe of who God was. And the way that he viewed God was so important to him that he left his comfortable position in order to pursue something that would be uncomfortable. Listen, you all, write it down. How do you view God and how do you view yourself? What comes to mind when you think about God? And don't give yourself just fake, sound good, pretend type answers, right? Be honest. What comes to mind when you think about God? At the same time, we have to think about what comes to mind. How do you view yourself? What comes to mind when you think about yourself? What have you been saying to yourself lately about you? Because, and I want you all to right here. What you see in the mirror to undervalue your skill, your ability, the gifts that God has given you. To undervalue that, hear me. When we undervalue that, we're really it's actually a knock on our end towards God because we are actually communicating that we don't like the way that God created us and we don't like or we have the wrong perspective of what he's given us. Are y'all with me there? When we look in the mirror or we undervalue what God has given us, we either it's a knock against him because it's like, hey, I don't like what I've been given, or we do not have the right perspective of who God created us to be and the gifts and the talents that he's placed on the inside of us. Many times, here's why. It's because we're so caught up in comparing what we've been given towards what we see visually in other people that we start undervaluing what God has given us. Are y'all with me? How do you view God? How do you view yourself? At any point tonight during this think tank, I want you all to ask questions. I want us to get all the way into this tonight. All right? All right. If you are with me, talk to me in the chat so far. If you've written down your answers so far on how you view God and how you view yourself, talk to me in the chat. Drop in the chat what you feel comfortable sharing publicly. But I want us to think through this. All right. Are we good so far? Are we good so far? I'm checking here on Instagram. Make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, we're good there too. We're good there, right? You're with me. Great, great. Look at this. I want to share this here with you. Okay, Nehemiah chapter 2, verse number 11. It says, "So I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. Then I arose in the night, I and a few men with me. I told no one what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem, nor was there any animal with me except the one on which I rode." All right. Listen right here. Again, tonight we're dealing with purpose and how to begin to take the right steps to execute in that purpose, right? So if you're just chiming in, that's what we're dealing with tonight. And we're using the canvas of the text of Nehemiah that we've been in for the last 2 weeks to highlight and help us get more understanding of what it means to have purpose and to walk in purpose. Notice this, that as Nehemiah begins to understand purpose that God's puts on the inside of him, when he shows up to execute that purpose, notice this. He does not go tell everyone what God has put in his heart. He simply begins to execute. As far as we know, we do not see Nehemiah having to go to 10,100 or even 10 people to go and get confirmation of if he should do what God's placed in his heart. I want us to get this. And then Kia, I'll come into your question, okay? I want us to get this. He does not go and have to get a million confirmations from people before he begins to step and do and execute what God's placed in his spirit to do. The text says he goes and he begins to inspect the land. He begins to take inventory. He begins to look at his surroundings. He's analyzing what he has to work with. This is why it's so important. This is why it's so important for us to define with clarity what God has purposed in our heart for us to be and to do. I'll give you one other layer of this before I answer Akia's question, okay? The other layer of that is this, okay? Many times, oftentimes, when we maybe post on social media that we're going to try and do something, or we have this idea or that, or even maybe there's a certain body of people that have influence with, etc., right? We go and we post it and we share it. Hear me here. Many times, or oftentimes, we're doing it from a motive of seeking agreement and to get attention. Uh-oh. Listen to this. We're posting it in a way to get attention and or to get agreement on what we already have in our spirit and already have in our heart and if or we already have in our mind that God has given us to do. Listen, y'all, listen, tonight, if you want a pacifier, log off. But if you really want to be led and led well with authenticity, this right here is for you. No pacifiers tonight. Okay? I want you all to get this. We have to ask ourselves, why am I sharing this? Is my motive behind this to get attention? Is my motive behind this to get agreement from people on whether they will like it or not? I want you all to get this and understand it because it's vitally important. All right. Now, Akia had a question that I want to answer. There it is. It says, how do you renew or change your perspective of God? Right? This is so good. How do you renew or change your perspective of God? I want to be really honest, and please leave that question on the screen just for a moment for me. I want to be very, very honest tonight. I always strive to be really honest. Understand this is that depending on our previous experiences and what we've been taught growing up and even experienced in our adult life, we have a certain, right, perspective of God, right? The way that we begin to renew or change that perspective is for us to grow in our personal relationship. Let me go deeper here. So we have uh, practicality around what that mean, what that look like. If you want to expand your relationship with a person, right? You won't be able to do that if you aren't communicating with that person, being around them, talking on the phone, texting, FaceTime, or whatever you do. It's from you being around that person that you're able to cultivate a different perspective of that person, even if you heard something about them before you actually met them or were around them for a large period of time. So what happens, what I'm communicating is this, is that fellowship breeds intimacy. Okay? Fellowship cultivates, it breeds intimacy. That if you want to grow with somebody, you have to do it in an intimate way. Intimacy. In to me, see. Hear me again. Intimacy. In to me, see. Intimacy allows you to look inside of the person and to see what other people may not see. Intimacy, right? So, how we do this is that our time of prayer with God, it has to look different. Us slowing down enough not just talking to him, but listening. It's not always like this loud audible voice. Like whoever has taught that or told you that's the only way, that's not true. There are things that God will, thank you, Helen. There are things that God will put into our spirit or put into our mind. And we're like, man, I never even thought about that before. And it's cultivated in prayer. One way. Also understand this, our perspective of God gets altered as well as we get to know him more through his word. Right now, one of the books of the Bible that I'm actively studying is the Book of Proverbs. And so what happens is, if you want to grow in intimacy with the person, you get around them a lot, right? Same thing with the Word of God. We have to spend time in it. We have to invest time in it. And hear me, I want you all to get this. It is a continual process. It's not, I've been reading for 2 weeks and I got it now. Or I've been reading for a month and I got it now. Come on, somebody, talk to me here. It's a dwelling with him. It's an abiding in him. It is a sacrifice, which means you may have to get up a little bit earlier in the morning. You may have to stay up a little bit later at night. You may have to cut your lunch break a little bit shorter at work. But he wants to see, are you willing to sacrifice what means the most to you in order to show me that I mean the most to you? There's something about intimacy, right? And there are many ways. A third way that I would add is this: is that in our everyday experiences, I think many times we underestimate the value of our everyday experiences. That when you have been through things and you've seen the hand of God and the presence of God active in your life, like the gratitude towards who God is. That many times we are not thankful for the things that God has already done. And so what happens is, as we cultivate and we're very thoughtful and very mindful of the everyday experiences, our perspective of God begins to shift. So I hope that's helpful. Yes. Yes. Hmm. Yes. In fact, all right. Question. I like it. Questions flowing in. Let's do this. My man Wendell said, should we expect to be aligned during our transition to our purpose or when we have walked in purpose? I'm going to read it again. I have understanding. Should we expect to be aligned during our transition to our purpose or when we have walked in purpose? All right. So hear me here. So I love the word you use here, which is the word alignment. Alignment, is deals with this continuity. It means that we are aligned, that we're moving in the same direction. When our car is out of alignment, it pulls to the right or it pulls to the left, right? So when it comes to our purpose, this word alignment is really, really critical. And so alignment is actually needed at every step of purpose. It begins in the beginning phase as we're seeking purpose, but along the way, we have to be checking in to make sure that we continue to be aligned. Someone, I shared this a few months ago. It may even been on here. Someone asked me to I guess I hear it all the time. Hey, how do you continue to hear from God? And here's my answer: the conversation never stops. What does that mean? It means that we have to be constantly seeking after him. We have to be, when it comes to purpose, constantly checking in, constantly, am I on course? Constantly, am I on track? David would ask, David, a man after God's own heart, will always look in the text. He always be saying things like this: should I pursue? Search me, examine me. You hear that? Cleanse me, purify me. He's checking himself against the standard of God, saying, God, if there's anything that's pulled me out of alignment at any stage of the game, hear me, draw me in, draw me closer. So again, great question there, Wendell. Great question. So all along at every stage, it has to be a continual place of aligning and seeking. And understand this, and you all hear me here. All of us, all of us can get out of alignment. And so when God corrects with love, in love, because he is love, when God corrects, when God gives discipline, he is aligning us with his will, right? Great question. That is a phenomenal question. All right. So you all keep the questions coming. All right. We're dealing tonight, for those who are coming on, we're dealing with purpose and how to walk in that purpose. All right. The very first D was define, right? It was define. Now we're going to get into develop, then defend, and then discern. This is very, very key tonight, all right? Understand this when it comes to developing our purpose. All right. And if you have any questions about us defining purpose, put it in the chat. I want to answer it. Okay, about us defining, because when it comes to defining, it deals with discovering, and many times we think it has to be this long blueprint or this long document that's given to us, and sometimes it may just be a word, and you get further understanding of that word when you take steps, and He reveals more as you step out by faith more. All right. So when it comes to developing that purpose, here's the one you want to write down under develop. All right. Here it is. We need the burden of a why, WHY. Put this under develop, We need the burden of a why, WHY. Put it in the chat so I know we're all on the same page as well. We need the burden of a why. All right? The burden of a why. When it comes to us, once you begin to have some idea of defining it with clarity, and it's time to begin to develop it, right? Because we don't want to just know it. We want to begin to develop it. I need to do like a book or something around this, or man, I love this topic, right? We need, that's it, Isaiah. We need the burden of a why. That's it, Helen. That's right. Alex, what do you mean by that? A why is what makes you get out of bed when you're sleepy. A why is what makes you keep going in the middle of the day when you want to quit. I told you all, no pacifiers tonight. We're going straight forward, all right? Many times our why is connected to an exchange. I'm breaking it down for us. So many of us, the reason why we go to work or go to a job is because for an exchange, we want to exchange, right, our time for dollars, or our time for an income. So the reason why we do it is for an exchange. But how many of you know, when it comes to fully walking in your in the purpose of God, a simple exchange like time for dollars won't always fulfill you. All right? The burden of a why does this. It's something that God places in you that makes you want to go, that makes you want to feel like you can run through a wall, the thing that stirs your heart, and it doesn't stir other people. It agitates you when it's not done correctly. It bothers you. It disturbs you. It agitates you. It's the burden of a why. This is what Nehemiah had when he saw the state of the city of Jerusalem, when he heard of the state of the gates, how it had been burned, how it was in ruins, despite the fact that Sanballat and Tobiah were constantly agitating him. Their agitation was not greater than the burden of his why. Are you all hearing me now? Their agitation was not greater than the burden of his why. Talk to me in the chat. I want you all to be thinking through this with me, okay? Okay? We're dealing with developing our why. Developing excuse me. We're dealing with developing our purpose, and we're talking about the burden of a why. The burden of a why. Right? This is under the D of develop. This is how we begin to develop our purpose. When it comes to developing it, we need the burden of a why. Okay? We're good so far. We're navigating well. All right? Listen, under the burden of a why, I want you to write the word whole. 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 Because I want, yes, you all have questions, please put those questions in the chat. Yep. When I said got it. We need the burden of a why. Under that, put the word whole. I need for us to understand right here, right now, is that God desires for us to be whole. All right? Alex, help us understand what you're saying here. That he wants our entire being to be filled with who he is, and not just the parts of us that we prefer. He wants for all of us to be whole, that he infiltrates every single part of us, that he exists, that he lives, that he's the filter, he's the center, and that he's first. That our spiritual, mental, emotional, financial, physical, relational, all these areas, he desires that they be whole. All right? Hear me very clearly here. When you go to work, for example, you're not just bringing one aspect of you. You're bringing your entire you into that environment. And what happened to you at home carries over, right? And it's a part of what you present at work. So they aren't mutually exclusive. Let's please go deeper here. So when we're off mentally, it affects things financially. Okay? When we're off emotionally, it also affects us relationally. Listen, let me give us some context in the text with this, right? 3 John chapter 2, right? I'll read from the Amplified version. It says, "Beloved, I pray that in every way you may succeed and prosper and be in good health, just as I know your soul prospers spiritually." Listen here. He says, I want you to be built up, right? I want you to prosper and be in good health, just as your soul prospers. How many of you know people that know scriptures? They've memorized scriptures. However, the other areas of their life have been so neglected that other people don't want to be around them. Talk to me, you all. That the reason why we have the Word of God is not just to memorize the Word of God, but it's so that we continue to grow and know God in such a way that it makes an impression on us and begins to alter us, so that when we are around other people, whether it be a believer or an unbeliever, their life is impacted by the impression that he's privately made on us. Talk to me, you all. Is this making sense to you right now? Right? He desires that all of us be whole, that we are whole, which means this, And here's a bold statement that I'm going to say here, right? Check it out. It means this: we have to rethink how we think. Talk to me. I want you all to think right now. Hear me. We have to rethink how we think. Right? There are some things that we are going to have to unlearn in order to learn it properly. Because some of the things that we have learned that are influencing the way that we think was passed down to us, right? And we're just duplicating what was done to us. And there's no knock against parents. I thank God for them, for grandparents, for spiritual parents, for uncles, aunts who really did their best to invest in us. It's no knock against a person. They gave us the best version of what they knew. And now we have the responsibility of taking that information and understand that everything has to be filtered through our perspective and our relationship with God, so that we can then pass down more information to those who come after us, and the process continues, and the versions of us continues to get better as we have more understanding and application of what it means to know and to walk with God. We have to rethink how we think. Is that making sense? We have to begin to rethink how we think. All right, here it is. My man Wendell, come through, man. I love it. Questions, you all, drop them in the chat. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, drop them in the chat, right? Wendell says, is it okay to build up to the why, or is it an expectation it should be, oh, this is good. It should be immediate, especially if you consider your saved. Yes, absolutely. Understand this right here is that, okay, here it is. You have you have your purpose, right? I'm gonna use this for a moment, right? You have your purpose. Embedded in that purpose is the why. The why is like the engine that makes the purpose go. So it's not always immediate, but we should want to identify it over time. Here's why. Because without the why aspect, we get tired, we feel like giving up, we forget who and what we are doing it for, and the burden of the why fuels purpose when even things feel foggy. Good example here. When Nehemiah is fulfilling the purpose of rebuilding the city and rebuilding the walls, when Tobiah and Sanballat and the other people that are attacking him, because Nehemiah has a why. What's the why? It's knowing that as long as we don't have the gates up, we remain vulnerable. Of knowing that his people are vulnerable to attack. Of knowing that the gates represent protection. Of knowing that and thinking about the state of his generation getting better. It is the why that makes him continue to want to seek and cultivate after the purpose. Does that make sense tonight? Does that make sense? And so the two work hand in hand. And while we don't always receive the totality of the why up front. We don't always get that, but it is revealed over time. Case in point here too. Hear me. As Jesus walks his as Jesus lives out his earthly ministry, right, through the Gospels, you would see words like this in the text: for this purpose, right? He would share, my hour has not yet come. He would share these specific things that spoke to why he was here and what he was doing while he was here. So he dealt with his purpose, and his why attached to that purpose was so that you and I will have the opportunity at life and life more abundantly. And so the two work hand in hand. And when they're together, I'm telling you, it changes everything. Phenomenal question. Yes. Yes. So again, we have to, great question. As you all have questions right here, make sure to drop them in the chat. Right? Right? Now I know I'm not gonna have time to fully walk this out. And I knew that coming into this, but I have to give you this part of develop as well. Because this right here is going to lead to our homework. I'm going to give you all homework to work through, right? Homework to work through at home and while you're on the go. All right? Right? So here it is. In order for us to develop purpose, I have to address this part. Okay? There is going to be some element, and when you all hear it, write it in the chat. There's going to be some element of fear. Talk to me, you all. I want you all to get this. There's going to be some element of fear. Because whenever you begin to discover and define purpose and begin to develop it, fear comes. Fear enters. Fear creeps in. You make the step to go after it. In comes fear. Fear immediately slides in the DM. Fear immediately slides in the DM. So whenever you make that decision, yes, I'm going to go after it. Yes, I'm going to develop it. Fear comes in. If you are with me so far, talk to me. I'm sure you all are getting this, right? Fear is coming in. It's chiming in. It wants to voice, right? It wants to voice itself, right? Jesus, that's right. I'm seeing it in the chat. That's it. I'm seeing it in the chat, you all. That's it. We have to unpack this, right? Fear. Jesus addressed fear all throughout the Gospels. He would say, do not be afraid, only believe. When Joshua was going through transition and walking into leadership after Moses, God continued to address the fear that Joshua was dealing with as he had to lead after Moses. All throughout the Bible, we see people who begin to do and be who God created them to be, and this element of fear was constantly present, right? Y'all, I want us to get this. Here's how I want to give it to you. Fear attempts to make you live within parameters that many times we've created for ourselves. I'm going to say this again. Fear attempts to make you live within parameters, to be confined by it, but we are the ones that have created it for ourselves. Fear feeds into uncertainty. It feeds into the unknown. And so fear always comes in. Fear is so crippling. Fear will always try to infiltrate anything that God puts into your mind, and the enemy is using it to cause you or to make you feel like you have to live within the limitations of what you already know. Y'all with me? This is what fear does. It's it is a spirit, right? It deals with previous experiences plus the possibility of the unknown. If this is making sense so far, talk to me in the chat. It deals with previous experiences plus the possibility of what's unknown. If this is making sense, talk to me. I want to make sure we are getting this. All right? It is flowing from external and internal factors. Nehemiah dealt with external factors of the people, Tobiah and Sanballat, not wanting him to help repair and rebuild the city. And so there's the external factor of the fear coming against Nehemiah. For you right now, in this think tank Max Monday edition, I want you all to think about this. What are the external factors and what are the internal factors of fear that are coming up against me? What are they? What are they? We have to identify them. What are they? What are the things? Because as we begin to identify them, we'll know properly how to address them. So even here, right now, tonight, I hope you all are, again, think tank edition. Make sure you are writing this down. Start jotting some things down. Man, when it comes to fear, what are the external and internal factors? What are, whenever I want to make a step, what are the things that keep tugging at me? What are the unknowns, the uncertainties that keep plaguing my mind? What is it? I have to identify it. We're going to learn, we won't get into it tonight because we're almost out of time, but even in the defense stage, you have to know what the enemy, right, is trying to throw at you or trying to repeat in your life to keep you stuck so that you know how to defend what God has given you. Okay, we have to identify these areas of fear, what's external and what's internal. When it comes to developing in our purpose, we cannot be oblivious to the fact that fear is going to try and creep in, and we have to be able to identify it when it raises its ugly head so we know how to defend what God has given us so that we continue to make progress. If you're waiting for the fear to go away by itself, or to be totally 100%, I'm not afraid at all, you're going to be waiting forever. Because God calls us, He says, do not be afraid. He says to believe. That means you have to many times believe and move despite the voice of fear that's trying to keep you stuck. So here it is, homework assignment. I want you all to get this, right? As you are identifying external and internal factors, right, that are trying to stop you from fulfilling your purpose, here's what I want you to do. All right, I want you Here, very clear to hear. In fact, I believe I even wrote it down. Did I? I believe I did. Here it is. I want you to challenge yourself to do at least one practical thing this week that gets you out of your comfort zone. And when you do, I want you to tag us in the in a DM, a post, an email. I want us to know, because as a church, as a movement of people, I want us to navigate and to celebrate this together. All right. I want you to challenge yourself to do one practical thing this week that gets you out of your comfort zone. Only you know what that is. But given the external and internal factors, you have to begin to practice. Do at least one practical thing this week that gets you out of your comfort zone. Listen, we are going to discover, we are going to define, we are going to develop, we are going to defend purpose. We're going to discern how to make the next moves. And so tonight we targeted the areas of define and the area of develop. And there's so much I could teach around this, but I want to keep it as simple as possible for tonight in these two specific areas of define and develop. So I want to make sure it was posted on the screen. Make sure I want you all to work through that this week. Challenge yourself to do one practical thing that gets you out of your comfort zone. Watch what God begins to do. Watch how God begins to respond. Watch how God leads you in such a way that it baffles your mind. It's going to be incredible. Listen, I want to pray with you, and then we're going to give all together. And so in a moment, the giving info will be on the screen. In fact, you can go ahead and put it on the screen, Leah. I want to pray while we do this tonight. God, I thank you for tonight. I thank you for people, God, who are hungry for purpose, that they are thinkers, that they are processors, that they are hearers and doers of your word, that you have given them a story, you have given them purpose. And that purpose is not designed to be dormant. They're not designed to become numb to it. But you call us to discover it, define it, develop it, so that our life pleases you, because our purpose fits within your eternal purpose. So God, thank you for giving us purpose in this way. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. 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 Yeah. Amen. Amen. Listen, I want to thank you all for being a part of this tonight, as we have talked about purpose and how to define and develop it. Listen, make sure you go ahead and take a moment. Listen, if you have been impacted in any way by what you have heard tonight or by what God is doing through right here at Life, listen, take a moment, and I want you to be a part of this moment of generosity. And as you are doing this, as you are giving, if you have any questions or feedback from tonight, go ahead and put it in the chat. We would love to see your responses. Make sure this will be available to you all on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, the info on how you can give, right? And while you are doing that, understand that you may need to go back and replay this. You may need to share this with other people who are wrestling with this idea of purpose, or maybe they're living in a way where there's a lot of uncertainty, and maybe this can be something that can bring them further clarity to their life. All right, good. A lot to meditate on. Yes, I want you all to think through this, to meditate, to think, to ponder as you're working out or walking or driving to work or whatever you're doing, go back and listen to it again. Okay, get it in your head. Take the time to process it and watch what God begins to do and challenge you, even in the area of your homework. All right. And so, again, the giving information is on the screen. Choose the option that works best for you. It is because of the generosity, right, of our people that we are able to be really effective in ministry. Yes, truly effective. And so we are not able to do major outreach, to do major discipleship, to see kids truly impacted, to be able to do things in person and online. It happens because of the generosity of our people. And so I want to thank you right now for all that you do to make sure that we continue to thrive and move forward. It's a big deal, and we celebrate you for all that you are. All right, we truly do. We truly do. So, whatever option that you are using, we thank God for you tonight. Thank you, man. Thank you all for hanging out. All your comments, all that you are sharing. Listen, let's continue to grow. Remember, your homework this week, right? What you are to work through is challenge yourself to do one practical thing this week, right? That gets you out of your comfort zone. Watch how God leads you, because tonight was all about purpose, and we want to see you fulfill purpose and honor God with the purpose that He has given us. All right. Listen, we thank God for you. So glad you are here. If you're glad you were a part of Max Monday tonight, listen, for the next 60 seconds, drop something in the chat. Before we exit tonight, I hope all your questions were answered. If you if you Isaiah, I all right, I hear you over there. If you were impacted by tonight, talk to me in the chat. I want to see it. The next 60 seconds, liven up the chat. I want to hear it. I want to see it. If you were impacted, come on. I want to see it in the chat. I'm seeing it fly up in the chat. So glad you're here. I see it, Helen. I see it. I see it. In fact, Helen, I want to hear yours personally. I want a phone call. I want a text for real. I want to know what yours is. Yes. Come on, y'all. The next 30 seconds. Let's liven up the chat. If you were impacted by tonight, if you learned something, if you're hungry for purpose, my man, Wendell put the 100s up. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. What's up, Jamie? This is great to see tonight. Absolutely. I love it. Listen, we thank God for you. Let's keep growing together. Hey, go ahead on that homework. I want to hear about it. I want to see it. Send a DM, a post, an email, whatever. We want to see it and hear about it. All right? Let's keep growing together. Love you. What's up, Portia? Y'all have a great night.